The Nexus station hung like a crystalline spider web against the infinite black of space, its intricate network of transparent corridors and gleaming connection points a testament to collaborative galactic engineering. Yet today, something was different. The station's usual hum of multilingual chatter and holographic exchanges had been reduced to a tense, expectant silence. Dr. Aria Chen walked with a deliberate pace that seemed to compress time itself. Her dark blue uniform wore no insignia, no medals, no indicators of the countless lives she had saved or civilizations she had guided from the brink of destruction. Behind her, a holographic trail shimmered, a living archive of human achievements that most of the galaxy had never truly seen. The Krull representative, a massive crystalline being that typically dominated any room, shifted uncomfortably as Aria approached. Its multifaceted surface rippled with colors of anxiety, deep purples of uncertainty mixing with sharp reds of barely contained fear. The Krull had been one of the most vocally dismissive species regarding human contributions, consistently undermining humanity's role in galactic affairs. Representative Chen. The Krull's translation matrix produced a sound that was simultaneously a growl and a whisper. "We were not expecting." Aria raised one hand. The gesture was simple, but it silenced the massive entity more effectively than any sonic weapon could have. Behind her, the holographic display began to shift, revealing a montage that would change everything. Images flickered to life, a human medical team stabilizing the last survivors of the Centauri plague. Engineers redesigning atmospheric processors for the methane worlds of the Sigma Quadrant. Diplomats mediating a conflict that had burned for 3 centuries between the Silicon Collective and the Quantum Tribes. Each image was a testament to humanity's quiet, persistent problem-solving. But beneath the achievements lay something darker. Subtle recordings of dismissive comments. Diplomatic transcripts where human contributions were minimized. Economic reports that showed how other species had profited from human innovations without acknowledgement. The Nexus station's central chamber, typically a place of galactic diplomacy, now felt like an interrogation room. Delegates from 417 different civilizations watched, their collective breath held in a moment of collective uncertainty. "You've forgotten something," Aria said, her voice cutting through the silence like a quantum blade. "You've forgotten what humans actually are." The holographic display shifted again. Now it showed something different. Moments of human vulnerability. Scientists working impossible hours. Diplomats sacrificing personal lives. Engineers solving problems that would never receive public recognition. The raw, unvarnished humanity behind the achievements. A subtle countdown began in the corner of the display. 72:00. Somewhere, in control rooms and strategic centers across human-controlled territories, systems were preparing to do something unprecedented. The Krull representative's crystalline structure began to fracture slightly, a physical manifestation of growing terror, because they were beginning to understand. Humanity wasn't just walking away. They were about to teach the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. "What are you doing?" The Krull finally managed, its translation matrix wavering between multiple emotional states. Aria Chen's smile was not kind. It was the smile of someone who had carried the weight of 1,000 unacknowledged miracles and was finally about to set that weight down. "We're going to show you," she said, "exactly what happens when the people you've taken for granted decide they've had enough." The transmission began with absolute silence. Every communication channel across the known galaxy flickered simultaneously. Quantum networks, quantum entangled relays, biological transmission arrays, and even the most primitive communication systems suddenly aligned. Delegates who moments ago had been whispering frantically about Aria Chen's appearance now found themselves frozen, watching a single figure materialize on screens across billions of worlds. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, humanity's final chief diplomatic strategist, looked nothing like a traditional galactic leader. Her silver-streaked hair was pulled back in a simple knot, her eyes carried the weight of centuries of unacknowledged work, and her uniform was deliberately plain. No medals, no insignia, just pure, unadorned authority. To the Galactic Collective, she began, her voice translated simultaneously into 10,342 distinct linguistic and telepathic communication protocols. We are done. The simplicity of the statement belied its profound implications. Behind her, a cascade of holographic data began to unfold. Not charts or graphs, but human stories. Personal narratives that revealed the true cost of galactic cooperation. A human medical researcher who developed a cure for the Centauri plague, only to have her work attributed to a Zarn research team. An engineering collective that solved atmospheric stabilization problems for 3 different civilizations, receiving nothing but bureaucratic dismissal. For 3 centuries, Rodriguez continued, humanity has been the silent backbone of your civilization. We have solved problems you didn't even know existed. We have prevented conflicts before they could begin. We have lifted entire species from technological infancy. And how were we repaid? The holographics shifted. Diplomatic transcripts materialized. Conversations where human contributions were systematically minimized, where their innovations were treated as trivial, where their sacrifice was reduced to a footnote. The Kral representative, still reeling from Area Chen's earlier appearance, attempted to interrupt. We have always. Rodriguez's gaze silenced them. It was a look that had negotiated peace between civilizations that had been at war for millennia. A look that could deconstruct complex diplomatic tensions with a single glance. No, she said. You haven't. The countdown continued. 71, 55, 42. With clinical precision, Rodriguez began detailing the systems that would begin to degrade. Quantum communication networks, terraforming stabilizers, medical nanite protocols. Each system was revealed to be fundamentally dependent on human innovation, human maintenance, human understanding. But this wasn't just a threat. It was an education. We are not destroying your civilization, Rodriguez explained. We are removing our support. We are showing you the true extent of your dependency. Every system we designed, every problem we solved, every conflict we prevented. You never truly saw us. You never truly appreciated the work. Alien representatives began to understand the magnitude of what was happening. This wasn't a withdrawal. This was a profound, systemic lesson. The transmission carried an almost academic detachment. No anger, no revenge, just a clinical demonstration of cause and effect. Humanity is walking away, Rodriguez concluded, and we want you to understand exactly what that means. The transmission ended, but the countdown continued. 7155, 00, and counting. The first system failed at exactly 7130:00. On the methane world of Krell 9, atmospheric processors began to destabilize with surgical precision. It wasn't a catastrophic explosion or a sudden collapse, but a calculated degradation that would have been almost imperceptible if not for the mounting evidence of systematic failure. Dr. Marcus Reyes watched from a remote monitoring station, his fingers dancing across holographic interfaces that tracked the cascading system failures. Unlike the dramatic scenes unfolding across the galaxy, his approach was clinical, almost academic. Each failing system was a data point, each collapsed network a profound demonstration of human engineering. The Krell 9 colony had been proud of its independence. They had boasted about their technological sophistication, repeatedly dismissing human contributions as primitive and unnecessary. Now their atmospheric processors, quietly designed and optimized by a team of human climate engineers a decade earlier, began to unravel thread by thread. Quantum communication networks were next. The Nexus station, moments ago a hub of galactic communication, became a silent tomb of dead interfaces. Diplomatic channels went dark. Research collaborations froze mid-transmission. The intricate web of interstellar communication, so advanced, so seemingly invincible, revealed itself to be a fragile construct held together by human innovation. On the agricultural world of New Centauri, terraforming stabilizers began their calculated retreat. Crops that had been engineered to survive in impossible conditions started to show subtle signs of stress. Not immediate death, but a slow, methodical breakdown that would become catastrophic if not addressed. "It's beautiful," Marcus muttered to himself, in a terrifying way. Each system's failure carried a signature, not of destruction, but of deliberate, methodical deconstruction. Whoever had designed these failsafes understood something profound about complex systems. They weren't just breaking things. They were teaching a lesson. Diplomatic channels exploded with panic. The Galactic Council's emergency communication hub lit up with desperate transmissions. Species that had spent centuries believing in their technological superiority now found themselves facing an uncomfortable truth. They understood nothing about the systems that kept them alive. The Zarn Collective, a species known for their technological arrogance, was among the first to truly comprehend the magnitude of the situation. Their most advanced communication arrays, their precision-engineered quantum networks, their celebrated technological infrastructure, all of it began to reveal hairline fractures of dependency. Marcus continued to watch, documenting everything. Each failure was meticulously recorded, each system's breakdown analyzed with academic precision. This wasn't just a withdrawal. This was a comprehensive case study in systemic vulnerability. Area Chen's earlier appearance in the Nexus station now made perfect sense. It hadn't been a threat. It had been a warning. 71 hours into the countdown, the galaxy was beginning to understand a fundamental truth. Humanity had been far more important than anyone had ever realized. And now, they were going to make that abundantly clear. The fail-safes continued their calculated dance. Systems degraded. Networks collapsed. And somewhere, human engineers and strategists watched and waited. 71 hours. The lesson was just beginning. The Galactic Forensic Commission assembled in absolute silence. Dr. Kalera Exthen, lead investigator of the most advanced analytical team in known space, struggled to maintain her composure. The holographic displays surrounding her were not typical data streams. They were a nightmare of revelation. 17 species contributed their most advanced analytical technologies to this single task, understanding exactly what humanity had done. The preliminary findings were destroying everything they thought they knew. "This is impossible," whispered Tillich, the quantum probability analyst from the Nebula Collective. His neural interfaces were crackling with overloaded information, quantum processors struggling to comprehend the data. The human contributions weren't just solutions. They were prophetic interventions. Take the Sigma Quadrant conflict, for instance. Humans had not just mediated a 3-century war between the Silicon Collective and the quantum tribes. They had predicted the exact molecular instability that would emerge in the Silicon Collective's primary energy matrix 127 years before it occurred, and quietly designed fail-safe protocols that would prevent total civilization collapse. Dr. Kalera zoomed into one particular dataset, a medical breakthrough that had saved the area cluster's population. On the surface, it looked like a standard genetic intervention, but the underlying code revealed something far more complex. The humans hadn't just created a cure. They had retroactively designed a genetic pathway that would prevent similar pandemics for the next 7 generations. They were playing 4-dimensional chess, Tillich muttered, while we were playing checkers. Each layer of the investigation revealed another level of strategic complexity. Diplomatic solutions that weren't just immediate resolutions, but carefully crafted long-term stability mechanisms. Technological innovations that weren't just advanced, but designed with built-in evolutionary potential. The Kral representative, now reduced to a humbled fragment of its former self, provided access to centuries of diplomatic archives. Every human interaction began to look different under this microscope. What had seemed like simple negotiations were actually intricate social engineering projects. Dr. Kalera isolated a series of communication patterns. Humans had been subtly guiding galactic development for centuries, not through force, but through an almost impossible level of strategic foresight. A terraforming project on the methane worlds of Krell 9 revealed the most shocking discovery. The atmospheric processors weren't just designed to sustain life. They were constructed with an embedded evolutionary algorithm that would allow the planet's ecosystem to adapt to potential climate changes over the next 5 centuries. They didn't just solve problems, Dr. Calera said, her voice a mixture of professional analysis and profound respect. They anticipated problems that didn't even exist yet. The quantum probability analyst's neural interfaces suddenly overloaded, projecting a massive holographic web that connected seemingly unrelated human interventions across thousands of star systems. It wasn't a conspiracy. It was something far more profound. Humanity hadn't been just another species in the galactic community. They had been the silent architects of civilization's survival. Every major breakthrough, every prevented conflict, every technological leap, humans had been there, working in the background, asking for nothing in return. And now they were gone. We never saw them, Tillich whispered. We never truly saw them. The audit continued, and with each passing moment, the galaxy was forced to confront a terrifying realization. They had no idea who humans really were, until now. The first diplomatic transmission arrived precisely 70 hours into the countdown. The Zarn Collective's lead negotiator, Ambassador Krell, looked like he had been personally dismantled and reassembled. His crystalline form, usually a beacon of diplomatic composure, now flickered with unstable frequencies that betrayed pure desperation. "We are prepared," Krell began, his translation matrix wavering between multiple emotional states, to offer complete and total recognition of human contributions. In a secure communication hub buried beneath the Terran archives, Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched the transmission with a clinical detachment that would have terrified any diplomatic corps in the galaxy. Behind her, a team of human strategists monitored every microscopic detail of the transmission. Not just the words, but the quantum-level communication signatures, the emotional frequencies, the barely perceptible diplomatic manipulations. The Zarn were offering everything: planetary rights, technological exchange protocols, complete archival access to their most guarded scientific repositories. Resources that would have taken centuries to negotiate were now being frantically assembled in hours. "They don't understand," whispered Dr. Marcus Reyes, analyzing the transmission's underlying data patterns. "This isn't about recognition. This is about survival." Each alien civilization was beginning to realize the true extent of their dependency. The quantum tribes sent parallel transmissions, multiple communication streams that spoke to the depth of their growing panic. Medical research archives, terraforming technologies, entire evolutionary databases, all offered with a desperation that bordered on religious supplication. The Silicon Collective's offer was perhaps the most revealing. They proposed a complete restructuring of their governmental systems, offering humans not just recognition, but actual governance rights across multiple star systems. Dr. Rodriguez's team began their analysis, not to negotiate, but to document. Every transmission was a case study in systemic vulnerability. "Look at the pattern," Dr. Rice pointed out. "They're not just offering resources, they're revealing their fundamental weaknesses." The Krall representative's transmission was particularly telling. They offered something no species had ever considered before: complete transparency of their entire civilizational infrastructure. Every technological secret, every diplomatic communication, every resource allocation strategy, laid bare. But humans had already seen everything. They had been the silent architects, the invisible guardians, long before anyone realized. Aria Chen, monitoring the transmissions from a research station near Jupiter, allowed herself the smallest hint of a smile. This wasn't about revenge. This was education. "We're going to teach them," she murmured, "exactly what they've taken for granted." Each transmission revealed more than its creators intended: technological vulnerabilities, societal fracture points, evolutionary dead ends that humans had been quietly preventing for centuries. The galaxy was learning its most important lesson. 70 hours into the countdown, the desperate overtures continued. Species that had once dismissed humanity as irrelevant now offered everything they had, not understanding that what they were truly offering was a comprehensive map of their own fundamental weaknesses. And somewhere, human strategists continued to watch, analyze, and prepare for the next phase of their profound, calculated lesson. 70 hours. The galaxy trembled. The transmission arrived without warning. A quantum-encrypted data package that defied every known communication protocol. It materialized simultaneously across every functional communication network in the galaxy. Dr. Elena Rodriguez had designed it to be impossible to ignore, impossible to misunderstand. The blueprint. On the research station near Jupiter, Area Chen watched the galaxy's reaction with a mixture of academic curiosity and profound strategic intent. This wasn't just information. This was a comprehensive guide to survival, innovation, and fundamental societal reconstruction. The first layer was deceptively simple, a complete diagnostic of every major civilization's systemic vulnerabilities, not as an attack, but as a clinical, almost compassionate exposure of critical weaknesses. The Zarn Collective's quantum communication networks, riddled with fundamental design flaws that would have caused catastrophic failure within a decade. The Silicon Collective's evolutionary algorithms, trapped in a recursive loop that would have eventually led to complete genetic stagnation. Dr. Marcus Reyes broke down the first layer of encryption. "It's not just a critique," he said to his team. "It's a roadmap." Each civilization received a version of the blueprint, tailored to their specific biological, technological, and societal parameters. For the quantum tribes, it included quantum stability protocols that would revolutionize their entire technological approach. The Krell received a comprehensive genetic re-engineering strategy that would solve evolutionary bottlenecks they hadn't even recognized. But the true genius was in the metastructure of the information. The blueprint wasn't just solving problems. It was teaching problem-solving. Each solution was accompanied by a detailed explanation of the underlying principles, the strategic thinking, the multidimensional approach that humans had used to address complex challenges. "We're not giving them fish," Area Chen remarked, watching the data streams. "We're teaching them how to fish, how to design fishing equipment, and how to create entire ecosystems that support fishing." The quantum-level encryption was a work of art. Any attempt to parse the information without genuine intent would result in cascading information degradation. This wasn't just data protection. This was a philosophical firewall that would only reveal itself to those willing to truly learn. Ambassador Carell of the Zarn Collective found himself weeping, a remarkable feat for a crystalline being. The blueprint exposed not just technological vulnerabilities, but the profound psychological limitations that had prevented his species from true innovation. On 1,000 worlds, in 1,000 different ways, civilizations began to understand something fundamental. Humanity hadn't just been solving problems. They had been cultivating the potential for problem-solving. The Silicon Collective's lead researcher described it as receiving the source code of innovation itself. Each layer of the blueprint revealed another level of complexity. Diplomatic strategies that redefined conflict resolution. Technological approaches that reimagined the very concept of progress. Evolutionary strategies that looked centuries ahead instead of focusing on immediate survival. 69 hours into the countdown, the galaxy was receiving its most profound lesson. This wasn't punishment. This wasn't revenge. This was liberation. Area Chen allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. Somewhere, across countless star systems, species were beginning to understand what humans had known all along. True power isn't about domination. It's about potential. The quantum contingency continued its elegant, devastating transmission. The transformation began in unexpected places. On the methane world of Krell-9, a young Zarn researcher named Jikur stared at the blueprint with a ferocity that would have been impossible weeks earlier. The quantum-encrypted document wasn't just information. It was a challenge. A dare to reimagine everything they thought they knew about technological development. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. The Silicon Collective's research centers became crucibles of reinvention. Diplomatic halls that had been chambers of stagnation now buzzed with unprecedented levels of collaborative energy. Species that had been enemies for millennia found themselves working together, guided by the intricate problem-solving strategies embedded in the human blueprint. Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched from a monitoring station, her team meticulously tracking the galactic response. This wasn't about control. This was about potential. The quantum tribes were the first to make a breakthrough that would reshape entire technological paradigms. By applying the blueprint's recursive problem-solving algorithms, they developed a communication network that didn't just transmit information, it learned, adapted, evolved. They're beginning to understand, Dr. Marcus Reyes noted, tracking the data streams. Not just the solutions, but the process of solution finding. Each civilization approached the blueprint differently. The Krull, with their crystalline computational matrices, began to deconstruct their entire societal infrastructure. Diplomatic protocols that had been unchanged for centuries were dismantled and rebuilt. Technological systems were reimagined from their most fundamental components. On 1,000 worlds, 1,000 revolutions began. The most profound changes were psychological. Species began to understand that innovation wasn't about individual brilliance, but about collaborative potential. The human blueprint had introduced a fundamental concept that was revolutionary in its simplicity. Problems are opportunities for collective growth. Chikor's research team on Krell 9 developed an atmospheric stabilization technology that would have been impossible under the old paradigms. Not by following the blueprint exactly, but by understanding its underlying principles of adaptive thinking. The Galactic Council, once a bureaucratic nightmare of competing interests, began to transform. Diplomatic sessions that had once been exercises in mutual obstruction now became genuine collaborative efforts. Species shared vulnerabilities. They approached challenges as collective problems to be solved, not as competitions to be won. Aria Chen allowed herself a rare moment of emotion. This was more than she had hoped for. The transformation wasn't just technological or diplomatic. It was fundamentally philosophical. Species were learning to see beyond their immediate survival, to understand the interconnected nature of galactic existence. On Earth, in a monitoring station that few knew existed, the human strategy team watched the unfolding revolution with a sense of quiet satisfaction. "We're not saving them," Dr. Rodriguez explained to her team. "We're helping them save themselves." 68 hours into the countdown, the galaxy was rewriting its own operating system. Not through force, not through conquest, but through the most powerful tool imaginable. The ability to learn, to adapt, to grow. The Silicon Collective's lead researcher summarized it best in a transmission that would be studied for generations. Humanity didn't just give us a solution. They gave us the ability to solve. Across countless star systems, civilizations trembled. Not in fear, but in the exhilaration of unprecedented potential. 67 hours. The final moments of humanity's calculated withdrawal approached with a silence more profound than any sound. On a research station near Jupiter, Dr. Aria Chen reviewed the final data streams. Not with satisfaction, not with triumph, but with the clinical detachment of someone who understood that true change was never about the moment of impact, but about the long trajectory of potential. The Galactic Reconstruction Conference was unlike anything in recorded history. Species that had been enemies for millennia now sat together, not as competitors, but as collaborative problem solvers. The human blueprint had done more than provide solutions. It had fundamentally reimagined the concept of civilization. Chikor from the Zarn Collective stood at the center of the assembly. Where once stood a bureaucratic representative, now stood a true researcher, transformed by the understanding that innovation was a collective journey. "We were blind," Chikor announced, their crystalline form resonating with a clarity that would have been impossible weeks earlier. Humanity didn't just solve our problems. They showed us how to solve ourselves. Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched from a quantum-encrypted observation point. This was always the plan. Not destruction. Not domination. Evolution. The data revealed a profound transformation. Diplomatic protocols redesigned. Technological paradigms shattered. Entire species learning to see beyond their immediate survival, to understand the interconnected nature of existence. The Silicon Collective had developed communication networks that learned and adapted. The quantum tribes had rewritten their entire evolutionary approach. The Crawl had dismantled centuries of rigid hierarchical structures, replacing them with collaborative decision-making matrices. But humanity was already gone, not destroyed, not defeated, simply absent. Dr. Marcus Rice completed the final analysis. The blueprint was more than a technological guide. It was a philosophical framework, a method of thinking that transformed problem-solving from a competitive to a collaborative process. We didn't save them, Rice noted to his team. We gave them the tools to save themselves. Aria Chen allowed herself a moment of reflection. Humanity had been the universe's silent architects for centuries, solving problems before they emerge, preventing conflicts before they began, guiding evolution with a precision that went unnoticed. And now, they had performed their most profound intervention yet. The Nexus Station, once a symbol of galactic bureaucracy, now pulsed with a new energy. Species were sharing vulnerabilities, collaborating across evolutionary boundaries, understanding that survival wasn't about individual triumph, but collective potential. 67 hours. The countdown continued, but its meaning had transformed. It was no longer about withdrawal. It was about potential. In a secure facility buried deep within the Terran archives, a final transmission was prepared. Not a message of farewell, not a declaration of victory, just a simple reminder. The universe is a collaborative project. The transmission would read, and you've only just begun to understand that. Humanity hadn't abandoned the galaxy. They had liberated it. The silent watchers continued to observe, not with judgment, not with superiority, but with the quiet hope of those who understand that the most profound changes happen not in moments of conflict, but in the patient cultivation of potential. The universe trembled, not in fear, but in the exhilaration of unprecedented possibility.